The words mother and father are potentially offensive if you believe the latest guidelines from a top British university. Manchester University has told staff that they should opt for gender-neutral words when communicating with students. So, for example, people should be referred to with the pronoun they rather than he or her. A husband or wife should be called a partner. A sister or brother should be referred to as a sibling. And words like mankind or manpower are also out of favour. Here's how the university explained the move.
The way we write for and about people can help to promote equality, diversity and inclusion and provide the same opportunities for all. This guide outlines how to use inclusive language to avoid biases, slang or expressions that exclude certain groups.
All right, we can now bring in human rights activist Peter Tatchell and Tim Dieppe, the head of public policy with the advocacy group Christian Concern. Gentlemen, thank you both for joining us here on RT International today. Peter, first to you. There has already been a bit of a negative reaction to this, one Conservative MP calling it wokery gone mad. Has the university gone too far here, perhaps?
Well, I think we have to look at the intention. The intention is to make everyone feel included so that everyone feels part of it, that no one is left out or left behind. So the intention is very, very good. And I think to make some modifications in language to ensure that is not a big ask. You know, it's a bit of an extra effort to think about the words we use, but it's not a huge ask. And language has evolved all the time. You know, we don't use language today that we perhaps used many generations ago. You know, the form of English itself has changed, and certain expressions like the N-word to describe black people are no longer acceptable. And this is just really a continuation of that process. You know, I don't think that anybody should be, you know, victimized or demonized if they don't, you know, fail to live up to these standards. But I can see what the university is trying to do.
All right, Peter, so you're ultimately saying the intentions are good here in the current conditions of, well, the world we're living in now. Tim, to you, the university was quick to stress that nothing's been banned. These are merely guidelines in response to a staff request for advice on how they can stay safe in their use of language. So, no harm done?
Well, that's clearly backtracking, isn't it, on their part, because the document clearly says you should not use the word mother. And here we are, the day before Mother's Day, and Manchester University says, whatever you do, don't say mother. Don't, you know, obviously we shouldn't send cards saying Happy Mother's Day, shouldn't say Happy Mother's Day to my mother, shouldn't ask somebody whether you've celebrated Mother's Day, or ask someone else, you know, what they've done for their mother, whether they bought something for their mother, that kind of thing. All that kind of language is banned, is discouraged. It's like, please don't use this language. Somebody could get upset. Well, why should you get upset about Mother's Day? Let's celebrate mothers. Why not have Mother's Day and celebrate it and send cards and call people mothers, because that's what they are. And this is really an attempt to sort of enforce language. The fact is that we are created male and female, and they're trying to avoid that, trying to sort of erase that clear distinction that we're made with, that we are male and female, and that we have mothers, that we have fathers, we have brothers, we have sisters, all of that. What's wrong with using that ordinary language, and why are we trying to police it and enforce certain types of language? I wonder if it's any wonder why the Vice-Chancellor of Manchester University got a vote of no confidence when they're putting out stuff like this.
Over to you, Peter. It's a bit of a tough time for students right now. We've seen campus lockdowns, all the teaching still online because of the whole pandemic, and yet they're forking out at least £9,000 a year for tuition at this University of Manchester. Surely the university has more important things to be dealing with.
Well, I think it probably only took half an hour for someone to work out these guidelines, and they are only guidelines. They're only suggestions. Nobody is going to be punished by the University of Manchester. It has never suggested that Mother's Day should be banned. The university is just talking about wording and language within its own confines between staff and students. So I don't think it's the draconian threat that Tim makes out.
But I suppose it's possible, though. Some might say that if one university starts doing this, it could spread on to other universities too. Tim, is there an argument that perhaps the university is just trying to protect itself? Here we are living in an age of cancel culture and lawsuits whenever someone's feelings are hurt.
Well, I'm glad that the the British government recently recognised there's a problem with this and appointed a free speech champion for universities. And I hope that champion looks at codes like this, because this is clearly an attempt to restrict how people express themselves and the kind of ways in which people should say things, and prevent people from distinguishing between mothers and fathers and brothers and sisters and all of this kind of thing. And I'm afraid the wording clearly says we should not use the word mother. So, there we are. That's what it's saying just ahead of Mother's Day. That's what one British university wants you to say.
Well, let's bring in some of the broader implications here. Peter, what about the risk of offending religious students? Muslim and Christian students might take a very different view to the university on the use of gender-neutral terms.
Well, again, it's just about a simple matter of respect. I mean, if people would prefer to be referred to in a particular way, I don't find it a big problem to respect their feelings. I mean, if they asked me to say something terrible about them, I wouldn't do that. But, this is just simply, trans people or women are saying, we would like, please, to be treated with respect, and we think this is a more respectful language. I would say to Tim, you do not support the use of the N-word to describe black people, do you?
No.
No, see, already you do agree that in some circumstances it is right to moderate our language.
Some might say the N-word has been deemed rude and insulting and offensive for many, 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 many years. But the terms mother and father, for example, predate the Bible. So, I mean, is this a case of mollycoddling here? The fear of hurting someone's feelings. Is it going too far here?
Well, I'm just simply saying the principle is that we all accept that some words and some language is not appropriate, not respectful, and shouldn't be used. All the Manchester University is doing is saying that within the university, not in the outer wider society, but within the university, they would like people to think carefully about the language they use and try and make it as inclusive as possible. And
no, but it's going further than that. It's going further than that, Peter, isn't it? It's not, this guidance does not say, be careful because some things you might say might be offensive. It says, watch out because mother and father you shouldn't use, and brother and sister you shouldn't use, and he and she you shouldn't use. Now, that's where it's going too far, because it's now saying ordinary language that we use every day to refer to our parents and our brothers and sisters and all that kind of stuff shouldn't be used, and to refer to people. And one wonders, again, how are they going to teach biology and medicine if they're not allowed to talk about he or she or parents or fathers or mothers or brothers, sisters, all this kind of thing?
Well, Tim, I wanted to ask you this, Tim, because, these gender-loaded terms are going to crop up the whole time in, for example, humanity courses, but not if you're studying maths, physics or engineering. Are we getting a situation where all of the burden of political correctness is on the arts, I guess, faculties now, but the sciences can continue life as normal?
Well, biology is science, of course, and so is medicine as well. And gender is very much involved, and some diseases are gender-specific. And I don't think we should avoid that. I don't think we should try and deny that or pretend that that doesn't happen. And so, why not refer to people according to their normal gender? That's the way we should do it. It's the way we've done it for centuries. And people, it's crazy to say that the world of offensive language should now extend to mother and father. This has gone too far. Yes, clearly some terms are offensive, but mother and father should never be regarded as offensive.
All right, let's get over to Peter one more time here. This is, of course, part of a much broader global story. Amazon has just banned a book called When Harry Became Sally, because it challenges the media's sunny depiction of gender fluidity, and all such titles will be banned by Amazon from now on. Where is this heading, do you think?
Well, that is not quite right. It's saying it's going to ban titles that suggest sexual orientation or gender identity are mental or physical illnesses. And of course, this is completely in accordance with all the world's leading psychiatric and medical associations, and in accordance with the views of the United Nations and the World Health Organization. They are saying that it is very, very clear that sexual orientation and gender identity are not mental or physical illnesses. So I think in that respect, all Amazon is doing is trying to stop fake news.
All right, one more time over to Tim, just before we run out of time here. Why do you think the woke crowd is so focused on the way we use language today? It tends to be much more about that than actual practical legislation.
Yeah, can I just respond, though, on When Harry Met Sally? I mean, I've read that book, and nobody's pointed to a page where he says that transgenderism is a mental illness. All right, so that's clearly not really the reason that Amazon have banned that book. And gender dysphoria is a condition, is it not? Everyone recognises that, talks about gender dysphoria, doesn't say transgenderism is a mental illness. And anyway, shouldn't we allow people to debate these things? Why should Amazon censor the kind of language that we use and the kind of things that we use around these kind of topical debates? And should Amazon have that role as the leading publisher in the world today by a long way in terms of censoring this? I'm very concerned about the way Amazon's going. You can buy Mein Kampf on Amazon. You can't buy this very recent creditable academic book discussing the whole role of gender in a very academic and sensitive way. And this is a problem. And the whole problem of language control is also a real concern here. And this Manchester University is just a prime example where you start to say mother and father is even something that people might find offensive.
Well, I think some are going to say that this conversation is only just getting started now. Tim Dieppe, the head of public policy at the Christian Concern not-for-profit advocacy group, and Peter Tatchell, a human rights activist. To both of you gentlemen, thank you for joining us today on RT International. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for sharing your time with us on this Saturday. We return in half an hour with more of your weekend stories.